Welcome. So this short sequence is intended to help you obtain a more comfortable Sukhasana or easy seated position, or perhaps eventually go into a lotus position. Now, always keep in mind your personal body's anatomy. Don't force yourself into a posture that doesn't feel right for your body. The telltale signs that you're forcing it prematurely, either you need to work through opening up the hips a little bit more, or maybe your body is not meant to go into a full lotus. Perhaps the way you use your hips throughout the rest of the day creates a different kind of movement pattern that doesn't facilitate this kind of hip opening. You have to really recognize what feels right for you. Don't ever compromise the knee. We can work through a little bit of resistance, but don't work through pain and don't strain, especially from the joint, because we're working from the hips, and if the hip rotation is there, then the knees will fall into the proper place, because the knees are locked into place. And if there's pulling on the knees, it's because there's tightness in the other parts of the muscles and the hips and such. Okay, so let's get started. As always in yoga, the breath plays a very, very, very vital role in your mental focus, in regulation of the nervous system, in opening up the body in a healthy way. So make sure you're connecting to your Ujjayi breath throughout the entire practice and use the breath to open. If you're not focusing on the breath, most likely you're straining, or you're forcing, or your mind is wandering. Okay, so let's start with the bottoms of our feet together. And it's okay if your body is rounded a little bit. Do your best to open it up. Really quick, let's touch on the few muscles that are involved in these postures. So of course we have our adductors here. Those are involved in pulling the hips in and out. We have the tensor fascia latae. That's a muscle that connects the hip to the femur and to the iliotibial band, which is that band that rides up along the side of the leg. And then we have our glutes that are going on there too. So all these different muscles, if you have tightness in the glutes, a lot of times you're gonna have kind of like this rounding here because the glutes are pulling the pelvis under. If you have tightness in the IT band and the tensor fascia lata, the knees tend to ride up a little bit more because this is restricting this external movement. And of course the internal, but honestly, a lot of the opening needs to come from this posterior part of the body and the outside of the legs. Now, of course, if there's still a lot of tightness in here, you're gonna get that pulling in action. So gently listen to your body as we move through these next few poses. So back into this little Baddha Konasana type of position or butterfly pose. Just kind of warm it up a little bit, connecting to the breath. Inhale, exhale. Soften there, and then flip your knees over to the right. Keep leaning back and push down through the left knee. And then flip your knees over to the left. Again, let's take it over to the right. And then back over to the left. From here, let's incorporate a twist. So pivot the knees to the right, take your left hand to your right knee, your right hand behind you. Now pull up through your left hip and try to connect that lengthening in the front of the thigh there, and maybe you're feeling something happening in the lower back and the glutes. Always focusing on the breath. Back to center. Let's take a little Baddha Konasana action here. Shoulders back, elbows in, gently reach the chest. Just warming it up. Inhale, bring it back up, pivot over to the other side. Remember, you're pulling up through that right hip, pressing down through the right knee, and lengthening through the twist over to the left side. And remember to fill the posture with the breath, back to the center. Okay, so as you guys can see here, I have my foam roller. If you do tend to have a lot of tightness, rolling is an amazing practice to do, especially through the iliotibial band. It's murder, but it's really good at mashing out the fascia in the body. So yoga has a different effect on the muscles, and when you're rolling it out, it has a full chain kind of reaction throughout the entire chain of muscles. So they are very complementary, yoga and foam rolling, especially when you have some chronic tightness going on. So I'm not going to get into foam rolling in this video, but we do have this here, and those of you that do really tend to have a lot of tightness in the glutes and the iliotibial, I'll do a really quick demo because I'm sure some of you are now curious. So I have a really heavy duty one. As you can tell, there's like a plastic cylinder on the outside. For some people, this might be a little bit too stiff. You can get different levels of stiffness of the rollers. There's softer ones as well. Now, initially, okay, so getting into the glutes, I'm gonna get right down on the roller. I'm not gonna do a full rolling session here, but I'm just demonstrating those particular key areas for these hips. And then this one, this one's great. I'm being sarcastic. So I'm using my top leg in order to control how much body weight I'm putting down through the roller and the IT band. But if you really want to get into it, lift both legs and go slow, especially those spicier areas. Don't just jump past it, right? The effectiveness of that is staying down there. Now, it's hard to get into, but we can get into the adductors as well on the roller. So I'm getting into my right leg, the straight one right now, but I gotta bend the left knee so I can kind of straddle it and get into those inner spaces. Not always easy to access it through the roller. But I'm taking small movements and getting right into there, into the inner groin area. Okay, so that was your quick little foam rolling demo. For those of you that tend to have a lot of tightness in those areas, it's a great tool to utilize. Just be consistent. Right? Don't foam roll once a week and be like, what's going on? Because your body has a certain cell memory and pattern that it goes back into. Okay, so let's go back into these postures. So let's first work with another Baddha Konasana type of position here. But again, we're easing into it. So we're gonna take a nice wide diamond shape, make it a little bit more comfortable for you. Grab your block, hopefully you started with a block here, and we're gonna make this a little bit more restorative so we can hold this posture for a little while. So to make it restorative, take the block out in front of you, any height that you feel comfortable with. I'm pretty chill in this pose, so I don't really need the block. I'll demonstrate with it. So you can take it out in front of you and rest your forehead on it, so this becomes a very passive, very yin type of posture here. Again, the block can be as high as you need it to be, or no block at all. And I'm not necessarily focusing on trying to keep my back super flat on this one. There can be some slight rounding going on because we're being very passive in this softer posture. So just let go, breathe into the hips, breathe in the back of the body, especially the space where your lower back starts to connect to your glutes. Each breath creates space on the inhale and release on the exhale. Focus on feeling that. Slowly round it back up. Now you can hold that from 3 to 5 minutes. It's a nice soft posture. You should feel comfortable in there. And if you're, again, working with areas that are very tight, holding it for those 5 breaths isn't enough to get really deep into that space of release. Okay, now let's cross our ankles, come to hands and knees, and we're gonna move right into Anjaneyasana or lunge position. So step your right foot forward, keep your left knee on the floor, interlace your fingers over your right thigh, and move through a lunge. Now you can feel those inner adductors a bit, maybe more so through the quadriceps. Keep your chest upright. Resist the urge to collapse over that right thigh. Try to keep the toes of the left foot pointing directly back. Try not to resist the urge to sickle, to let the toes kind of curve in towards the body. And then let's gently back out of the lunge. And switch sides, right knee down, left foot forward, interlace the fingers over the left thigh, and move through. Hopefully you can hear my Ujjayi breath. I'm consciously aware of how I'm affecting the posture through the movement of energy through the breath. That's what pranayama is. Pranayama is movement of energy. The breath is one vehicle. Visualization is another way of moving energy. Okay, now we're going to back out of it and we're going to make our way into Virasana. We're going to address half hero's pose. So you can do this with a block. To take half hero's pose with the block, you would keep the right leg extended and sit down on the block. I'm stretching the left side with the left knee bent and reclining. Again, that's if you're tighter in the ankle or maybe you have more of the tightness in the quad there. Or if it's easy for you, accessible for you, you can do it without the block. You can stay up in this position with your palms, maybe your forearms. Maybe you can fully recline, but try not to let your knee pop up, because as soon as you're doing that, you're no longer getting the stretch where you really need it. If you still need more, you still have some space, and you're like, Joan, I'm not really feeling much, then you can also place the right foot onto the left knee and press down. Right, this is getting a bit into that tensor fascia latae that I was talking about in the beginning, the one that connects to the IT band and the outside of the thigh. But maybe you are feeling it more on the quadricep, and that's okay too. Maybe that's the space that's tighter. Slowly come up, keep that left knee bent, lock it into place, pull it into your chest, and then extend it out. So again, you can do the block on the other side, or if you don't need the block, lock the right knee into place, take the ankle behind you. If this is a lot on the top of the foot, use the block, or maybe putting a towel underneath the top of the foot. For some people, that's enough to take some of that pressure off. And then gently recline, keeping the right knee pressing down into the floor. You can even create a bit of a posterior tilt by tilting your tailbone forward. That will deepen the stretch as well. Connecting to the breath. Mind-body connection, taking that breath into the body to move the energy consciously. course, you can always hold it longer. You can pause the video if you're like, Joan, I'm just getting there, right? Hold it as long as you need to. Just make sure you're not in a place of strain where you feel like you can't stand it. You should play that edge where you're feeling like you're working through some resistance, but you're not moving into that space where it's intolerable. Okay, keep the knee bent, lock it into place, then release it out and give it a shake. Okay, from here, cross your ankles. We're gonna use the block again. If you don't have a block, use a blanket. Maybe get a big thick book, but just purchase some blocks. I prefer the cord ones to the foam ones because they don't give. The foam ones, sometimes when you place them underneath, there's too much give to them. Okay, so we're gonna start king pigeon pose, and you're gonna take the block on the right side. So take the left knee back, and there's different ways of utilizing the block. I like to take it right on the belly of the hamstring, not on the hip, not on the knee, so that I can really get into those deeper spaces. Right, so here, whoop, definitely some glute action. Make sure your hips are squared off. You're right in the center, that you're not hanging over the knee. Now, if you're really tight in this area and you tend to lean over, tuck that front ankle in so that you can stay in the center. Okay, and then you walk it out. Keep that back foot pointed straight back. And breathe into the hip. And then walk it a bit over towards the left. Keep pressing back and down through that right hip. Walk it back into the center, gradually pull it up. And then curl that back toe under and make your way into a down dog in between sides. And then we're gonna take it over towards the left. So the block is now on the left side. I'm gonna take my left thigh so that my hip and my knee are both hovering off the floor. Take it right into the belly of the hamstring area there. Square off the hips, point that right toe behind you. Make sure you're in the center, and then slowly walk it out. Find the breath and make sure that you are gentle enough in this posture that you can really hold it, sink into it, surrender into the sensation of the hip. And then slowly walk it over towards the right. Keep pushing back and down through that left hip. And back through to the center. Slowly take it back up. Curl that back toe under and press it back into your downward facing dog. Okay, we're gonna come into a variation of garland pose or malasana. I'm gonna first demonstrate it with the block. And like I said, to get the most effectiveness out of these postures, make sure you're holding them for a certain extended period of time. So let's say in this pose, it's hard for you to keep your ankles on the floor. Maybe separate your feet a little bit more, maybe place something underneath your heels. I said ankles, meant to say heels. You can also utilize a block A really great variation for this one is, you can do it with or without the block, is to take it up against the wall. And just hanging out here. So your hips are opening up and your spine is nice and tall, right? Pushing my shoulders back. I'm trying to get the tailbone to rotate back towards the wall, pressing my elbows into my knees to keep that opening through the hips. Yeah, and just settle and breathe. So pick which variation feels right for you right now. With the block, without the block, with the wall, without the wall. And make sure you're in this position where you can just hold and breathe. Maybe even close your eyes, just get into those hips. Yeah. And you know, in yoga, we frequently say that we store our emotions in our hips. I think there is some truth to that. A lot of times when we're in a really intense, meaning like holding hip opening postures for an extended period of time, we tend to go through these different waves of emotions. Regardless of what they are, sometimes it's just frustration towards the teacher. When the hell are we going to get out of this pose, right? No, but settle, observe, notice what the body's telling you. Don't hold on to it, right? If those emotions do come up, let them flow. I'm feeling some stuff. I'm not going to judge it. I'm not going to categorize it. I'm observing. It's a sensation. I'm witnessing that sensation. And then you can experiment with the sensation. What will happen with the sensation if I let go a little bit more, if I breathe a little deeper, if I press, or if I surrender. Be your own scientist. So let's gently ease out of that malasana. Take your knees together, soften into a nice little child's pose here. Back up to hands and knees. Let's come back onto our back. Another helpful pose to get deeper into the hips and to work through your lotus is the figure four. So you're going to come all the way down onto your back, cross, let's do this side, the left ankle over the right knee. Pull your right knee into your chest. So if you do have the tightness in the glutes and the posterior chain, your tailbone's going to have a tendency to want to tilt up here. Try to keep it pressing down. Try to feel the knee and the hip moving in opposite directions. So your knee comes towards you, but your tailbone rotates down. And it's okay if it deepens the lumbar arch, that little arch in your lower back. That's okay. But try to create a different kind of movement there. Knee in, tailbone down, so that you can really access the opening where you need it in the hips. Keep the feet active. You do not have to go around the shin. You can go around the thigh. Shoulders plugging down into the floor, chin slightly drawn in, so the back of the neck is nice and long, and breathe. Okay, so now you're going to lower the right foot down. Drop your left foot over to the right side. Try to grab onto your left ankle with the right hand and draw your left knee forward. Yeah, I got that. Okay. Hello, tensor fascial latte. Let's release it, gently pull it back in, lower the left foot down, take it to the other side. Draw the left knee in, scoop the right hand through, interlace your fingers around your left thigh or your left shin. Keep your feet flexed, plug the shoulders down, tilt the tailbone down, and breathe into that hip. And then we release, bringing the left foot down, but keep the right ankle crossed over the left knee. We drop the left foot over to the other side. Try to grab onto your right ankle with your left hand and then press that right knee forward, however much your body will allow. Release, bring it back up. Take both feet back down. Draw your knees into your chest and rock back up to a seated position. Okay, so let's say this is the posture that you're working on. You're easy cross-legged, right? You have a tendency to have that kind of rounded back body here. So with your block, you're going to sit on your block, and this is going to give yourself a little bit more space so you can more actively open through the hips and just settle here. Breathe in this posture. Maybe after holding it for a minute or so, you can pull your heels in a little bit more, but work on that rotation forward, the anterior tilt, lengthening the back of the body as you continue opening through the hips. Okay? So those of you that are pretty solid in your hip opening but are still struggling with your full lotus position, I'm going to show you these next few postures here. So for all of us, we can start in our Padmasana again. Again, you can turn it into a more gentle, restorative Padmasana. And honestly, I recommend doing this for a little bit before we go into the deeper variations. Forehead on the block, any height that feels comfortable without any strain in the back. Let go and breathe. Let the breath circulate in the hips. Keep your consciousness in the hips. Receiving from the body, receiving the messages, receiving what it wants to offer you. Try not to hold anything back or judge anything that you're feeling. Okay, now from there, you can continue to deepen. So we'll take the block flat in front of you, bring the bottoms of feet together, Padmasana, belly in and up, shoulders back, elbows close to the ribs, and take it through. Make sure you're not shrugging the shoulders and always utilize the breath. Smell your stinky toes. Okay, after holding that for a couple minutes, next dimension of the block, taking it up a notch. Back it off. Got one more dimension there. Uber spicy time. Yeah. Some good stuff, and I definitely recommend holding those for a longer period of time. And then when you come back into your regular Padmasana, you're like, what? Feels like nothing. Easy for you to say, Joan. Okay, so to eventually make your way into your full lotus, right? You can test it out. Okay, Joan, I just did that. yummy hip opening sequence. I want to see where I am as far as my full lotus. So work on first pulling the knee in, right? So now I know I'm pretty much not going to compromise the rotation of the knee because it's locked in place. And then from there, you start to work the foot deeper into the body. And then you can drape the foot over the crease of the inner thigh. If it's not quite there yet, right, you can hang out on the upper thigh. Maybe it's closer to the knee. Stay in whatever position feels comfortable. Maybe hold it here. Maybe take a forward fold. And then pull that knee back in and extend it out. Do it on the other side. Lock the left knee into place. And then you're rotating from the hip now. Open that hip out and drape the foot wherever it will fall along the right thigh, as long as you're not compromising the knee. Maybe hang out here, pressing down. Maybe take a forward fold. And then pull it in and extend it out. And then finally, the full expression of the posture. Again, start with the knee locked, open outward through the hip, and then rotating from the hip, place the knee wherever it will fall. You do the same thing with the other side. Pull the knee in, open out through the hip, and maybe you just kind of shimmy the heel. Maybe the foot starts to come up. Maybe you're like, whoa, it's coming all the way up, right? So traditionally in this posture, we start with the right foot first and then the left. But work both sides. So right now, I know I'm mirroring, but I did the left foot first. So I'm gonna release it and then take it from the right. And hang out in your lotus. If you're working on deepening it, Supta Padmasana, your reclined lotus position, hang out here, breathe into this posture, continue opening those spaces. And remember to work both feet. You can also take the variation where you are doing your Padmasana on your belly. Yes. Okay. So that is our hip opening for a more comfortable, easy cross-legged position, or perhaps a full lotus or a deepening of the lotus posture. Thank you for getting hip with me. Namaste.